Hello everybody, Average Gamer here. Welcome to a quick little video here. This should be the only video that you see on Monday. I'll have some more videos up later in the week, and hopefully a live stream or two. But no stream today, being Monday, because it is, and videos may be a little sparse this week and kind of intermixed a little bit because it's Thanksgiving weekend here in Canada. For those of you who are not North American, or actually American or Canadian, because I believe Mexico doesn't celebrate, though I might be wrong on that one. I don't think people in Mexico actually celebrate. Yeah, I'm just actually double checking. So I know Germany, Japan, the UK, the origin of Thanksgiving, places like India, Sri Lanka, Malaysia, Japan, Germany, American territories, like, or ex-territories like the Philippines, a lot of British, older locations, like Grenada and things like that. They kind of celebrate to a degree. But yeah, it's Thanksgiving weekend. So Americans are probably confused right now because they actually celebrate it, I want to say, the same day every year. Because for us, it's the second Monday of October. And the U.S., I think you guys do it sometime in November. I think you guys do it near the end of November. Yeah, November 28th. There you go. So, little big things you guys need to know that are different about Canadian Thanksgiving and American Thanksgiving. Both are based off of the British or the English Puritan thing of fasting and then giving thanks in a big feast. But those have obviously gone differently. So the first theoretical Thanksgiving Canada was in 1578 in the Frobisher expedition, where some British ships decided to try to chart the Northwest Passage and search for it. So I believe, if my grade 9 history reminds me, they happened to be at the point where they were doing their Thanksgiving. I can't remember whether they did it in Newfoundland or the Labrador. They did it in one of those two areas. Back in 1578. Later on, Champlain did it a little later. In what is now Quebec City, the oldest city in North America. Thanks to, I think, like Roanoke and a few other places in the States not surviving. What else? But yeah, so it's pretty much the same thing. Now, Canadian Thanksgiving and American Thanksgiving, though, have the, everyone has that argument, right? Those are the two main countries that celebrate Thanksgiving. They're the origin of Thanksgiving. Neither of us, that's not right. So the origin of Thanksgiving is an actual English Puritan thing, where they would go on fasting, and then they have days of thanks. And they would have multiple of these over the year. So, over time, obviously, it's been incorporated into our cultures and modified a little bit. So, Canadian Thanksgiving was actually completely different than an American-style Thanksgiving up until roughly the 1770s. Which, as an American, you should recognize that as roughly the time of the American Revolution. So, basically, prior to the American influence on a Canadian Thanksgiving, things were more red meat associated. Deer, caribou, lots of corn, very intermixed with native food. So lots of locally grown food, things like that. And those be, shared between both the French, the English, and the natives. That's a big thing right there, where all three of the cultures in Canada actually would come together during these feasts. And I say feasts because they would have multiple Thanksgivings over the winter. Multiple of them just so that, they would celebrate these great harvests, these great bountiful harvests, and they could basically have parties all winter long. That's what they did. They basically partied every week. Once a week, until basically the winter went away. And winters in Canada back in the day, hell, even when I was a kid, not the best things in the world. I remember multiple days as a kid we couldn't leave the house over like a week span because just it was so cold, the wind chill, the snow was going all over the place. Like, you could go out and be okay, but it was just not the smartest thing in the world to do. Because you'd either get hit by a car because the car couldn't see like 4 feet in front of it, or, or you couldn't see as a kid more than a foot or two in front of you, and you'd walk into a wall. I actually remember a couple times snow building up so much by our back door because of the wind. We couldn't actually get out of our house. But anyways, so first Canadian Thanksgiving was 1578. And Americans... What? Oh. So Americans had their first Thanksgiving. Theoretically, everyone gives it the whole thing of the first Thanksgiving dinner was at Plymouth Rock or whatever it is in 1621. So theoretically, the Canadian Thanksgiving is older by almost 100 years. Now, mind you, as I said a few moments ago, the actual oldest Thanksgiving is neither American or Canadian. It's British. It's English. So that's a funny thing. But yeah, so later on in the 1770s, when the Americans had their little argument with the British about tea and stuff like that, it was a rather nice little argument. No one got shot. And then a bunch of loyalists, my family included, by the way, left the United States and came up to Canada. So initially, prior to this, Canadian Thanksgiving was very, like as I said, like caribou, deer, lots of corn, breads, lots of jarred foods that were basically preserves. That's something. Anything that basically you could preserve over the winter, pretty much you'd be eating it and partying at least once a week with this stuff. Once the Americans came up in the 1770s, they started bringing things like turkey with them, where it's like, hey, let's do turkey. They brought, I think it was squash was something that they brought up with them. The whole Horn of Plenty thing, where it's big tube thing with a bunch of I'm trying to remember what the correct name for all those things are. It's like squashes, pumpkins, all that stuff. So actually, hold on one second, my love. Yeah. What are squashes and pumpkins called?
What?
What are squashes and pumpkins called? Please don't say fruit. Oh, okay. Nah. So yeah, so basically, Canadian Thanksgiving then got modified once all that happened, and the two basically became very, very similar because obviously we're so intermixed between the two countries that the only difference now between Canadian Thanksgiving and American Thanksgiving is one is the second Monday, which is ours, and then the American one is I think it's the last Sunday of November? No, it's November 28th this year. Yeah, that's pretty much the only difference now. But yeah, so the next time you see an American or a Canadian and they say they invented Thanksgiving first, tell them no, you didn't. The English Puritans did. And then look at them and laugh. Yeah, so most people also don't realize too is that places like Australia celebrates it. Grenada celebrates it. Pumpkin pie, though, apparently is only a North American thing. Didn't know that. Liberia celebrates it, though that is the American failed colony. The Netherlands celebrates it, which is very interesting. Apparently it's for a lot of people that actually landed in Plymouth, and then went back to the Netherlands after the fact. The Philippines does, which makes sense because it was technically a colony or a puppet country during World War II, and there was a lot of Americans there. A lot of the islands obviously that the Americans control in the Pacific and in the Caribbean as well. Germany has a festival on the first Sunday of October. Now, mind you, you're probably thinking of Oktoberfest, which is what I first thought of, but actually this is called Okay, I am so gonna pronounce this wrong, but it's a It's called the Harvest Thanksgiving Festival, also known as the Erntedank Fest. Erntedank Fest. I always love how like they can have like you translate it into English and it's like 14 words long, and it's just like 14 letters long in English. Japan, they also have a Labor Thanksgiving Day, where it's a national holiday and plan where they basically they do it on November 22nd, and that's due to the American occupation after World War II. So that's more of a hey, the Japanese celebrate it because of their American overlords. In the UK, Thanksgiving still is not a technical holiday, but it is a festival. It's a harvest festival of Thanksgiving. It's a thing that was pre-Christian, blah, blah, blah. It's in late September, early October as well. I don't actually have a date for that. And then India has one that's almost exactly the same. So, I mean, it's just named a little differently as well. But yeah, so that's why there's no stream today, because I'm either drinking at my girlfriend's parents' place, which I need to actually get some beer, or I'm in a food coma. One or the other. So I'm probably not highly functional today. That's why I'm recording this on Sunday. Anyways, see you guys tomorrow in the video. Bye bye.